Hey guys, Karenology here. Get ready because this story is pure chaos from start to finish. Homeowner Association just sent me an official warning. I'm walking too often in my own neighborhood. At first, I thought it was some kind of joke. I moved into this gated community 3 months ago, hoping for some peace and quiet after years of living in the city. I'm a journalist, mostly working from home, so my daily routine consists of morning coffee, answering emails, and taking a walk around the neighborhood in the evening to clear my head. But apparently, that's a problem. I first noticed something off when my neighbor, an older guy named John, approached me last week. He had this cautious look on his face and spoke in a low voice, as if someone might be listening. "You're new here, right?" he asked, glancing around. "Yeah, just moved in," I said, wondering why he looked so concerned. "Word of advice, watch how often you walk around here. Karen doesn't like it." I raised an eyebrow. "Karen?" He sighed. "Karen Owens. She runs the homeowner association. But this isn't just some neighborhood committee. She's got eyes everywhere. Cameras, informants. Hell, even the HOA security seems to work for her. People who don't follow her rules tend to disappear." I chuckled, thinking he was exaggerating. "Disappear? What, she kicks them out?" John shook his head. "It's not that simple. Some people get buried in so many fines and legal threats that they have no choice but to sell and leave. Others get framed for HOA violations they didn't commit. If she doesn't like you, you won't last here. Just be careful." I didn't think much of it at the time. Then, 2 days ago, I received the letter from the Homeowner Association. It was a formal warning, signed by Karen herself. It stated that residents should limit unnecessary foot traffic to maintain the community's privacy and security. I laughed when I read it. Walking was now a threat to security? I wasn't loud, I wasn't loitering, I wasn't even stepping on anyone's lawn. I was just walking. I tossed the letter aside and decided to keep doing my routine. Yesterday evening, things escalated. As I was finishing my walk, I noticed a black SUV parked at the end of my street. It wasn't a normal car for this neighborhood. Most people drove sedans or luxury SUVs, but this one looked official. Government-style tinted windows. As I passed by, the engine turned on, and the car slowly rolled forward, keeping pace with me. I stopped. The SUV stopped. My stomach tightened. I turned around and walked back toward my house. The SUV didn't follow me, but stayed there, idling. I knew someone was watching. This morning, I woke up to another letter in my mailbox. It was a second warning, stating that I had failed to comply with community walking regulations, and that further violations would result in fines. It included a list of supposed witness reports from neighbors claiming I had been lingering near homes and observing private properties. That was a lie. I wasn't lingering. I was walking the same path I always did. That's when it hit me. They weren't just warning me. They were building a case against me. I called John. "You were right. I just got another warning. Now they're accusing me of acting suspiciously." He sighed. "They're testing you. Karen's trying to see if you'll break. If you ignore the warnings, she'll escalate. Fines, harassment, maybe even police involvement." "Over a walk?" I asked, incredulous. "Over control," he corrected. "She doesn't want people thinking they can do what they want here. You're new, so she's establishing dominance. If you let this slide, next thing you know, she'll be telling you what color your curtains can be." I hung up, my mind racing. If Karen wanted a fight, she was going to get one. I wasn't about to let some overzealous HOA dictator dictate where and when I could walk, but I needed to be smart about it. If she was willing to fabricate complaints, what else was she capable of? That night, I took a different approach. Instead of walking, I drove around the neighborhood. I paid close attention to the security cameras positioned at intersections, noting their angles and coverage. That's when I noticed something strange. A section of the community, toward the far end, had fewer cameras. Almost none, in fact. It was an older part of the neighborhood, with bigger houses and fewer streetlights. It looked neglected, almost like the HOA had stopped paying attention to it. I slowed my car as I passed one of the houses. The lawn was overgrown, the blinds drawn. The driveway was empty, but the mailbox was overflowing. Someone had left in a hurry or had been forced out. I took out my phone and snapped a picture. The next morning, another letter arrived. But this time, it wasn't just a warning. It was a fine, $500 for repeated violations of community privacy ordinances. I stared at the paper, my anger boiling. This wasn't just about my walks. This was something bigger. Something Karen was hiding, and I was going to find out what it was. I stared at the fine in my hands, my fingers gripping the edges of the paper so tightly that it started to crumple. $500. For what? Walking in my own neighborhood? Observing my surroundings? Karen had just escalated the fight, and she wanted me to know that she had control. But I wasn't about to roll over. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to think rationally. If I went straight to the homeowner association office to dispute the fine, they'd probably ignore me or use it as an excuse to stack more violations against me. If I refused to pay, they'd increase the fines until I was drowning in fees. No, I needed another approach. Something that would expose what was really happening in this community. That evening, I parked a few blocks away from my house and walked toward the abandoned homes I had seen the night before. This time, I paid closer attention. 3 houses on the same street had overgrown yards, piled up mail, and no signs of life. It wasn't just 1 or 2 families who had left. It was a pattern. I pulled out my phone and took more pictures, zooming in on the neglected properties. Why were these homes empty? What had happened to the owners? More importantly, why wasn't the HOA doing anything about it? This wasn't just Karen's iron grip on control. This was something deeper. I was about to leave when I heard a car engine rumbling behind me. I turned casually, trying to look like I was just stretching my legs, but my heart rate spiked as I saw the black SUV again. It was parked at the end of the street, its headlights off. Someone was watching me. I forced myself to walk back to my car at a steady pace, fighting the urge to run. The SUV didn't follow, but I could feel the weight of its presence, like a shadow stretching over me. By the time I got home, my mind was racing. I needed more information, and I knew just the person to ask. John answered on the second ring. "You sound tense," he said. "Because I just found 3 abandoned houses that no one's talking about," I said. "And I think I'm being followed." There was a pause. "Meet me at my place in 10 minutes. I drove over, checking my rearview mirror the entire way. John's house was on the edge of the neighborhood, one of the older properties that had been around before the HOA took full control. When I stepped inside, he wasted no time. "What did you see?" I showed him the pictures on my phone. "Why is no one asking about this?" I asked. "Where did these people go?" John sighed and sat down. "You ever hear about the forced buyouts?" he asked. When I shook my head, he continued. "Karen and the HOA have been pressuring homeowners for years. Some get buried in fines and legal fees until they have no choice but to sell. Others get bought out quietly. But in the last few years, things changed. People didn't just leave. They vanished. No moving trucks. No goodbyes. Just gone." A chill ran through me. "And no one does anything about it?" "The people who ask too many questions either get targeted or scared into silence," he said. "That's how Karen keeps control. Fear. And if fear doesn't work, she finds other ways." I exhaled slowly, absorbing his words. This wasn't just about my walks anymore. Karen was running something bigger than just a tyrannical HOA. She was orchestrating a systematic takeover of the neighborhood. I had to find proof. That night, I set up a camera in my car, pointing toward the street. If the SUV came back, I'd have footage. Then I did something risky. I left my house and walked toward the abandoned properties again. This time, I wasn't just looking, I was listening. Halfway down the street, I heard it. A low murmur, voices coming from one of the darkened houses. I crept closer, pressing myself against the side of the building. Someone was inside. But the house had been empty, hadn't it? I peered through a gap in the blinds. Two figures stood in the living room, whispering. One of them moved toward the window, and I barely had time to duck before they peered outside. My pulse pounded in my ears. Then I saw something that made my stomach drop. The second person in the room? It was Karen. I backed away slowly, my heart hammering. Karen wasn't just enforcing rules. She was meeting with someone inside one of the abandoned houses. Why? Who was she talking to? I needed to get out of there before I was caught. As I turned to leave, my foot scuffed against a loose rock. The noise was small, but in the silence of the night, it was deafening. I heard movement inside. A door creaked. I ran. My heart pounded as I darted through the shadows, every step feeling like it echoed through the silent neighborhood. Behind me, I heard a door swing open. Voices, urgent, angry. Someone was coming after me. I cut through a side yard, my breath sharp in the cold night air. The houses were too well maintained, too perfect, offering little in the way of hiding spots. I had to get back to my car before they caught up. As I neared my street, I glanced back. The figures from the house had stepped onto the sidewalk, scanning in my direction. One of them raised a phone. A second later, the streetlights flared brighter. I froze. The HOA had remote access to the lighting. That was unsettling. I sprinted the final stretch, unlocked my car, and slid inside, locking the doors. Hands trembling, I started the engine and peeled away from the curb, checking my mirrors. The SUV I'd seen earlier was back, its headlights flicking on as I turned the corner. They were following me. I took the longest, most convoluted route home, looping through side streets, stopping at random intersections to see if they'd follow. They did. No matter where I turned, the SUV stayed close, never overtaking, never falling too far behind. They wanted me to know they were watching. When I finally pulled into my driveway, the SUV kept going, vanishing into the night. I sat in my car for a full minute, trying to slow my breathing. My hands ached from gripping the steering wheel. They knew. They knew I had seen something. And now, they were making sure I knew that they knew. Inside, I checked my cameras. The footage from my dashcam was still recording. I rewound and watched as the SUV trailed me for nearly 20 minutes. If I needed proof of intimidation, I had it now. But proof of what? What was Karen actually hiding in that house? I didn't sleep much. Every creak of my house, every distant car engine made me sit up and check my cameras. Nothing. But the tension in my chest wouldn't fade. The next morning, I decided to take the risk. I needed to talk to one of the former homeowners. If people had been pushed out of this neighborhood, someone had to have a story. I went through the county's property records and found a name, Michael Hastings, the previous owner of one of the abandoned homes. A quick online search gave me an address just outside the city. I drove there that afternoon, the paranoia still clinging to me like a second skin. The house was smaller than I expected, nestled in an older neighborhood that had none of the sterility of Karen's domain. When I knocked, I expected hesitation. Instead, the door opened almost immediately. Michael was in his mid-40s, with tired eyes and a tension in his shoulders that never seemed to relax. The moment I mentioned the HOA, his entire posture stiffened. "I can't talk about that," he said, already closing the door. I wedged my foot in before it could shut completely. "Please. I just need to know what happened." He studied me for a long moment, then sighed and gestured me inside. The house was sparsely furnished, like someone who had left everything behind and never quite rebuilt. You want to know what happened? He said. The HOA happened. Karen happened. I sat down waiting. He ran a hand through his hair. It started with the fines. First, they were small. $100 for improper lawn maintenance, even though I had a landscaper. Then $500 for violating parking regulations when my car was in my own damn driveway. When I disputed it, they ignored me. The fees doubled, then tripled. I frowned. They were trying to push you out. He nodded. And when I didn't budge, they changed tactics. Anonymous complaints. Neighbors suddenly remembering that I was aggressive, or made them uncomfortable. Someone even accused me of suspicious activity near their home. One day, a cop showed up, said they had received multiple calls about me lurking around houses. It was complete bullshit. But after that, my employer got a call. Said they didn't want that kind of attention associated with their business. I exhaled slowly. They came after your job? Michael let out a humorless laugh. Oh, it got worse. My bank suddenly reviewed my mortgage and found an issue. My insurance premiums spiked because of security risks in the neighborhood. They turned my entire life into a pressure cooker. I had a choice: sell and leave quietly, or fight a legal battle I couldn't afford. I shook my head, feeling my stomach churn. And the others? The other houses? He hesitated. Some fought back. Some left before it got that bad. And some just vanished. I stared at him. Vanished? He leaned in, voice low. One day they were there. The next, their house was empty. The locks changed. No trace of them. HOA would say they moved, but no one ever saw them leave. No moving trucks, no goodbye parties, nothing. My throat went dry. Did you ever try to contact them? He smiled grimly. You don't contact people Karen erases. You just count yourself lucky that you got out. I left with my thoughts spinning. Karen wasn't just running a strict HOA, she was orchestrating something bigger, something designed to systematically erase anyone who didn't fit her vision of the neighborhood. And now that I was asking questions, I was on her radar. As I pulled into my driveway, I noticed something off. My front door was ajar. My pulse spiked as I reached for my phone and stepped out of the car. The lock was broken. Someone had been inside. My stomach twisted as I pushed the door open. The house looked normal at first, nothing obviously missing. But then I saw my laptop on the kitchen counter. The screen tilted just enough to make it clear someone had used it. The files on my desk had been shuffled. A single sheet of paper sat on top. It was a notice from the Homeowner Association. It simply read, "Final warning, stay in line." I swallowed hard. They weren't just watching. They were inside my house, and they wanted me to know it. I stood frozen in my own home, staring at the paper in my hands. Final warning. Stay in line. My pulse hammered against my ribs. Someone had been inside my house. They didn't steal anything. They didn't wreck the place. They just wanted me to know that they could reach me anytime they wanted. That was the message. I swallowed the lump in my throat and took a slow step back, scanning the room. The laptop was still open, but the screen had gone dark. My desk drawer was slightly ajar, though I knew I had closed it. My instincts screamed at me to leave, but that was exactly what they wanted, to scare me into running. I wasn't about to give them that satisfaction. I took out my phone and snapped a picture of the note, then carefully placed it back where I found it. If I reported this to the police, what would happen? Nothing. If Karen had enough influence to use HOA rules as a weapon, she probably had connections within the local precinct. I needed proof. Undeniable, irrefutable proof that couldn't be buried or ignored. I locked the door behind me and sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel. Michael Hastings' words rang in my ears. You don't contact people Karen erases. But what if I could find someone before they disappeared? What if I could catch them in the act? I pulled up the list of abandoned houses I had marked earlier and focused on the most recent one. The last known owner was a woman named Lisa Dempsey. According to the records, she had sold her house only 3 weeks ago, just enough time for the HOA to wipe any trace of her existence from the neighborhood. But what if she hadn't left town yet? I spent the next hour tracking her down. The sale had been processed through a third-party firm, which led me to a new address on the outskirts of town. When I arrived, the house was small but well kept. I parked a block away and approached on foot, knocking lightly. The woman who answered was in her late 30s, with wary eyes and a tension in her posture that set off alarms in my head. "Lisa Dempsey?" I asked. She didn't answer, just stared at me for a long moment before glancing past my shoulder, checking if I was alone. "I'm not here to cause trouble," I said quickly. "I just need to know what happened. Why did you leave?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. "I don't want any problems." "I think you already have problems," I said. "And so do I. Someone broke into my house last night and left a warning note. And I think you know why." Lisa exhaled sharply, rubbing a hand over her face. "You don't understand what they're capable of. Karen isn't just some control freak. She's running an operation. She's forcing people out, turning properties over to buyers who are approved by her and the HOA. "Buyers who?" She shook her head. "I don't know exactly, but it's always the same pattern. First come the fines, then the harassment. And if you still won't leave, things start happening. People get accused of things they didn't do. Break-ins, anonymous police reports. Employers get mysterious complaints about their employees. They make your life hell until you have no choice but to go." I clenched my jaw. "Did you see anything? Did you recognize anyone working with her?" Lisa hesitated. "Not faces, but I saw the same cars. Black SUVs. They parked down the street, watched from a distance. I once followed one late at night. It led me to a gated warehouse on the other side of town. I don't know what they're doing there, but whatever it is, it's worth getting rid of people for." A chill ran down my spine. "Can you take me there?" Lisa stared at me like I was insane. "Are you trying to get yourself killed?" "I need to know what's going on," I said. "If we don't stop this, more people are going to disappear." She hesitated for so long that I thought she would refuse. Then she sighed. "Fine, but we go in my car. Yours might be tagged." We drove in silence, the city lights fading behind us as we neared the industrial district. The warehouse Lisa had mentioned was surrounded by a tall chain-link fence, cameras perched on every corner. We parked a block away and approached on foot. From our vantage point, we could see movement inside. Men unloading crates from an unmarked truck. Lisa grabbed my arm. "That's them. Those are the guys Karen's been working with. I've seen them before." I pulled out my phone and zoomed in, snapping pictures. But then, a noise behind us made me freeze. Footsteps, getting closer. I turned just in time to see 2 men in dark clothing emerging from the shadows. One of them had a radio in his hand. "We got him." Lisa grabbed my wrist. "Run." We bolted back toward the car, but they were faster. I heard Lisa yelp as one of them grabbed her. I turned, throwing a desperate punch that connected with someone's jaw, but before I could get my footing, another man tackled me to the ground. The impact knocked the air from my lungs, and before I could struggle, I felt a sharp sting in my neck. Everything went dark. I woke up to a splitting headache and the sensation of cold metal against my wrists. My arms were restrained behind me, the plastic zip ties cutting into my skin. The air smelled of damp concrete, oil, and something faintly metallic. My vision blurred as I tried to focus. I was in a warehouse, probably the same one Lisa and I had been watching before everything went sideways. A groan to my left made me turn my head. Lisa was there, slumped against a metal chair, her wrists tied to the armrests. She looked dazed but conscious. The fluorescent light above us flickered, casting eerie shadows across the space. Footsteps echoed, heavy, deliberate. A door creaked open, and I felt my stomach drop when Karen Owens stepped inside. She wasn't wearing the pastel sweaters and fake friendly smile I was used to seeing at HOA meetings. Instead, she was dressed in a sleek black blazer, her blonde hair pulled back tight, her expression cold. Behind her, two men in dark clothing stood like statues, muscle she had on payroll. She stopped a few feet away, hands clasped in front of her. "You should have left it alone." I forced myself to sit up, ignoring the throbbing in my skull. "And let you keep running your little real estate scam? Pushing people out of their homes? Covering up whatever the hell is going on here?" She sighed like a disappointed teacher. "You think you figured it out, don't you? You have no idea how deep this goes." Lisa shifted in her chair, her breathing unsteady. "People disappear because of you." Karen tilted her head. "People disappear because they don't belong here. This community is a vision, a project designed for a very specific type of person. The kind that follows rules, the kind that doesn't cause problems." I scoffed. "The kind that doesn't question you." Her lips curled. "Exactly." I glanced at Lisa. Her jaw was tight, her fingers twitching against the restraints. She wasn't scared. She was calculating. Karen took a slow step forward. "I could have let you go with a warning, but you kept pushing. You started looking where you shouldn't have. You think this is just about HOA regulations? That's cute." I clenched my fists. "Then tell me what it's really about." She exhaled, a flicker of amusement in her eyes. "You won't be able to do anything with the information, but why not?" She turned and gestured toward one of her men. He stepped forward, pulling out a tablet and tapping the screen. A large monitor on the wall flickered to life, displaying an aerial map of the neighborhood. But it wasn't just a simple layout. It had layers. Different sections highlighted in red, blue, and green. "This community was never meant to be a simple housing development," Karen said. "It was an experiment, a controlled environment to weed out undesirables, those who don't conform." Lisa's eyes widened. "This is a purge." Karen smiled. "Such a dramatic word. But yes, in a sense, we take properties from the non-compliant and replace them with hand-picked residents who understand the bigger picture." "Who funds this?" I demanded. She chuckled. "You think I'm the top of the food chain? Please, I just manage the system. The real players are far above your pay grade. Developers, corporate entities, even government officials with an interest in urban restructuring. They make sure people like you don't get in the way." I felt my pulse spike. "And the ones who don't just move? The ones who resist?" Karen's smile didn't falter. "They get handled." The air in the room felt colder. Lisa swallowed hard, her expression unreadable. I needed to keep her talking, needed time to figure out a way out of this. "And what happens to us?" I asked. Karen sighed. "Well, normally, we'd frame you for something. Have the police drag you through a nightmare of legal battles until you lose everything. But unfortunately, you've gone a little too far. The warehouse footage alone is problematic. And Lisa? She's been a thorn in my side for too long. So, we're going to have to do this the hard way." The man beside her reached into his jacket. My body tensed, instincts screaming at me to move, but I was tied. Lisa's breathing hitched. Then, everything happened at once. A loud crash shattered the moment. The door to the warehouse burst open, and suddenly, the room was filled with shouting. Shadows moved, fast and aggressive. Gunfire erupted. Karen ducked, her guards scrambling. I twisted in my seat just as a familiar figure rushed in. John. He had a weapon, moving with practiced efficiency, taking down one of Karen's men before the other could react. Another figure followed. A uniformed cop. Not one of Karen's. Real law enforcement. "Get them out!" John shouted. Lisa and I didn't hesitate. The moment one of the officers cut my ties, I lunged forward, grabbing Lisa's arm and pulling her to her feet. Karen was shouting orders, trying to escape in the chaos. I didn't let her. I tackled her to the ground, pinning her wrist as she struggled. "It's over," I snarled. She sneered up at me. You think this ends with me? You think you stopped anything? More officers swarmed the warehouse. One of them grabbed Karen, yanking her up and restraining her hands behind her back. She didn't resist. She just smiled. You have no idea how many people are still out there, she said. How many like me are waiting to take my place? I met her gaze. Then I guess I'll have to keep digging. Her smile faltered just a fraction. Lisa stepped beside me, breathing hard. Let's get out of here. We left the warehouse as Karen was escorted away, still wearing that damn smirk. The officers told us there would be an investigation, but we knew better. This was only one branch of something bigger, something designed to crush people like us. But they had underestimated us. And now? Now we knew how to fight back.